Hello there. In this video, we'll continue from where we left off in the part 1 of this tutorial series to see the output of our to-do list app. So, get your part 1 deployed contract address ready too, as we'll make use of it here. If you haven't seen the part 1 video of this tutorial series, please do so now, as you will learn how to write the to-do list smart contract and also execute some key project commands that will get you your deployed contract address too. Now, let's head to my cloned Eternity documentation of repository site for the part 3 tutorial of building a to-do list app. Great. As you can see, I'm on the Eternity documentation hub, and the tutorial is under the Getting Started section of the documentation hub. Now that we're here, we are good to go. I have the front-end project published on GitHub as a template repository, and we will start by cloning the repo. Then, I will explain some important aspects of the app and show you how to add your previously deployed smart contract. Before cloning the repo, this tutorial is created to show you how to make use of æternity JavaScript SDK to interact with your smart contract and your front-end app without depending on base app or an identity app like we did in the part 2 of this series. Sit tight and let's get started by cloning the advanced to-do app repo. To clone it, I'm going to copy this, then open my terminal and paste this, but make a little adjustment to it and say advanced to-do. Great. Now we have it. So I'm going to open this cloned repository on my IDE, which is VS Code. And I'm going to do that using code, the home symbol, and I'm going to say advanced to-do. Perfect. Now I have it here, and the next thing I would want to do is to install the dependencies. And to do that, what I'm going to do is to invoke my terminal and then type in npm install. Okay, it's installing, and we should have our node packages in no time. Okay. For the purpose of this tutorial, I would be making use of this documentation hub in order to show you some things and explain some things while we see the app using the VS Code. So we should be ready in no time. Okay, I can delete this now. Well, we'll wait for this. Okay, I guess my internet is bad, so I'm going to pause this and resume after the installation is done. Cool. Now we have our node modules folder, which consists of the packages, and we're ready to see our app frontend. To do that, we would execute the npm run serve command. As you can see, starting the deployment server. And almost done. 68, 69, 90. Voila. Our to-do list app now runs our local server at port 8080. So to do that, I'm just going to open this. Let's open this place. And perfect. Now this is our to-do list app. Okay. So if you notice, this keeps loading because we have not added our deployed smart contract address. So let's head back to VS Code and I will show you how to do so. Okay. Before we add our deployed smart contract address, let me explain some important aspects of this repo. The source directory, which is this, has some folders in it, and it helps to build the user interface of our to-do list app. Our major focus in this tutorial will be the account.js, contract.js, and the todo.view file. These files contains the essential part of this project, and other files deals with the configuration of our Vue frontend app. So, kindly know that this tutorial will not explain the creation of the UI components of the app, but will show you the most of how the contract calls happen. So, let's begin with the account.js file. The account.js file contains the configuration settings for our app, and it's located in the config folder, which is the subfolder of the source directory. This is the account.js. So the file contains the account key pair, which is the public key, the private key, the node URL, and the compiler URL. Because we're making use of the testnet middleware, our node URL, which is the Sentinel SDK, is this https sdk-testnet.app.com, while our compiler URL is this. Now to the contract details.js, which is also located at this config folder. As you can see here, contract.js. Good. So this file houses the contract itself and the deployed contract address. The contract address property is where we put in our part 1 deployed contract as a value, just like in the code snippet. And as you see the code snippet here, you see the contract value, contract address, and this is the value. So I'm going to copy this. Then paste it here. Good. And as you can see, this is the source of our contract, which was the contract we wrote in the part 1 series of this video. Now, let's see our UI to confirm if everything is working well. Okay, so let me reload this page just to make sure everything is working well. Perfect. Now we can see that our app is working perfectly well. We can see the task, we can add a task, we can change the status of the task, we can see the balance, we can see the state, we can check for active tasks, completed tasks, and all tasks. So you can see our UI works perfectly well now. But how is our app communicating with our smart contract? To answer this, let's move back to our code, as the todo.view file holds the answer at the component directory of our source folder. So this is the component directory of our source folder, and this is the todo.view file. The todo.view file starts the authentication step, which is to get the client. If we move back here, you would see on this code snippet that our client is equals to æternity JavaScript universe method that counts the node, the account, and the compiler URL. The node child helps us connect to the testnet node as it makes use of the node URL of our account.js file, while the account child uses the memory account method to get the æternity account that will be charged for transactions after making use of the key pair given in our account.js file. Finally, the compiler child makes use of the compiler URL given in our account.js file. With this, our client can now get the balance of any wallet which was used to get the balance of our provided public key in our account.js file. And as you can see here, we have the balance of that address here. Finally, we can make use of our clients to get our contract instance, which as you can see here, our contract instance is equals to the get client instance method of the client after making use of the contract source and the contract address of our contract details.js file. Getting all tags was done using the getToDos function inside the smart contract, and the code below, which is this, shows how this is done. It gets the tags, phrase them, and save them as an array for the UI. Adding a tag is achieved with ease using the addToDo smart contract function, which in our case here, this is the code that actually does the same thing. This same thing goes to changing tag status using the edit_todo state smart contract function. So let's head to our code on VS Code, which is here, to see these functions. The get client is here, and as you can see here, we have the get client function that gets our clients and connects to the testnet node, just as it was shown on the tutorial. Same thing goes to getting to-dos and changing to-dos. So as you can see, this is to edit the to-do, this is to get it, this is to add it to-do, and also to get it to-dos. So now, let's check out our app again to add more tags and complete some tags. To add the tags, I'm just going to put in updated task and click on enter button. Good. We should have our updated tags. Okay, let me reload this. And yes, we have our updated tags. We can change the status of the updated tags, and good. So our contract is now communicating with our app. And finally, we have come to the end of this tutorial, where we built a to-do list smart contract that was tested and deployed on testnet, and also connected our contract to our Vue.js frontend framework. Now you are good to go, and you can build your own awesome app using AE project. See you in the next video. Bye.